thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman. Here's what we're looking at.
Are they chilling our right to free speech and assembly?
The state's Accountability Commission holds its first hearing on federal agents' deployment of chemicals on protesters. Some older people push forward with an alternative budget plan and a new teen curfew. More on where it stands in City Council. And classes to help Chinatown seniors use technology are facing funding cuts. We kick things off right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the Alexandra and John Nichols family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
Just as Border Patrol Chief Gregory Bovino and many of his agents returned to Chicago for more federal immigration enforcement action, the Illinois Accountability Commission met with the public for the first time today.
We can recommend state legislation. We can make recommendations for discipline. We can make recommendations for prosecution. We know that some of those recommendations may fall on deaf ears.
The commission, tasked with keeping a public record of reported abuses perpetuated by federal immigration agents, focused today's meeting on crowd control weapons, specifically chemical irritants. Our Matt Masterson joins us now with more insight into the hearing. Matt, so the hearing mainly focused on the deployment of chemical agents. Dr. Rohini Har testified about the impact that these weapons, like tear gas, have on the body. Here's some of what she had to say.
The use of force is occurring by and large unjustified. And two, when it is being used, basic protocols that would protect health and limit injuries are not being followed.
Okay, so let's rewind a little bit, Matt. Remind us how this commission came to be. What prompted its creation?
Yeah, this was launched in October through an executive order by Governor J.B. Pritzker, who wanted to create a commission that is tasked with documenting and recording all these numerous allegations of abuse by federal agents in Chicago and the Chicago area by federal agents during the Operation Midway Blitz immigration enforcement action. This commission, it's 8 people. Its job is to track things like chemical weapon usage, like agents pointing their weapons at protesters or residents, any violent arrests that were made during this operation. But their role really isn't to enact sweeping legislation. They're there to listen, to learn, and to advise. They're going to take testimony from different groups. They're going to take videos that are submitted to them, and they want to learn about what these agents are doing while this is ongoing in Chicago.
Okay, and of course we just heard from Dr. Rohini Har and her testimony. What did the commission find out about how and why federal agents were using force in many instances?
Like you said, today's hearing was focused on chemical weapons. Dr. Har spoke about several instances that she reviewed of agents deploying tear gas in and around Chicago during Operation Midway Blitz, and she found that every single one of those was essentially a misuse of these chemical weapons. One of these that was discussed at length today was a November 8th incident in which a 1-year-old child and her family was tear gassed as they were in a car to go shopping. Har spoke about how there was no threat present to these agents at the time. There were no warnings given before this tear gas was deployed, and there was no consideration of whether or not that gas needed to be used. The tear gas is banned in warfare. It's not something that should be used lightly, but what she was finding that these agents repeatedly were using it without justification. And that tracks with what federal judge Sarah Ellis found as part of a lawsuit last month when she found that agents had repeatedly used these types of weapons just indiscriminately in various situations that did not call for them, and then would repeatedly lie about the justification that went into that after the fact.
Okay, so we know the commission, they plan to issue a finalized report by April 2026. What happens next?
There's going to be more hearings like today. There's a 3-hour hearing where they heard testimony, public comment. They want to continue gathering that sort of evidence from people who are experiencing this firsthand. There's going to be a status report filed in January with some recommendations. But the commission's goal is to continue documenting this on a rolling basis. People can submit allegations to the commission's website. They can go to hearings and tell the commissioners what they've experienced in person, and that's what they want to keep gathering as this goes forward until April.
Okay, I'm sure you'll keep an eye on it for us. Matt Masterson, thanks so much.
Thanks, Brandis.
And you can read Matt's full story on our website. It's all at WTTW.com/news. And we're back with more right after this. Rival budget plans compete as alders opposed to the mayor's spending plan make progress with their own plan. And as that drama plays out, another controversial measure is making its way through City Council, one that aims to control large teen gatherings downtown. A new curfew proposal allows police to impose what's called a time and site curfew versus the previous snap curfew proposal, which the mayor vetoed. Joining us for more on that plan are Alderman Brian Hopkins of the 2nd Ward, which includes communities like the Near North Side, Lincoln Park, and Westtown, and 6th Ward Alderman William Hall. He represents communities like Chatham, Auburn, Gresham, and parts of Inglewood. Thanks to you both for joining us. So let's start with the budget, because you all have until next week to pass one to avoid an unprecedented government shutdown. A counter proposal to the mayor's budget plan is headed to a final vote after passing 2 city council panels. It calls for over $473 million in new taxes while relying on $35 million in advertising revenue. Mayor Johnson has condemned this plan, calling it infeasible and speculative, says that he would veto that. Alderman Hopkins, to you first. Where do you stand on this proposal?
Yeah, I'm one of the members of the coalition that passed it out of the Finance Committee. I'm not on the Budget Committee, but had I been there, I would have been one of those 21 or 22 votes that supported it. Both committees now are prepared to report out what is a complete budget. I maintain that it's a balanced budget. I know the mayor disputes that, but we've checked our math and we've checked our revenue projections, and we believe it is a balanced budget. It's before the mayor right now. He has not said definitively he's going to veto it. I think he's considering vetoing it, but he's also considering letting it pass. That's on him right now, so we'll have to see where we're at with the negotiations.
Alderman Hall?
Well, you know, one of the things in this proposal, the tax levy increased. And for me, my ward saw 100% in Inglewood, 80% in other parts. And I made a promise that I would not do anything or vote towards adding to property taxes. And so, unfortunately, I am a no for the proposed budget. Doesn't mean that the work that was presented by my colleagues is in vain, but it just doesn't fit the 6th Ward.
Alderman Hopkins, what do you make of the mayor's response that he would veto it if it passes?
I'm not sure he will. I don't think he wants to see a government shutdown, and if he vetoes it and we don't get to a veto override status, we have a government shutdown effective December 30th. However, I do believe that if the mayor were to veto it, this will pass with probably 30, possibly 31 votes. So we're looking at a deficit of maybe 3 votes to override a mayoral veto. There's some aldermen that have indicated they're open-minded to possibly overriding a mayoral veto to avoid a shutdown. I don't think the mayor wants to take that risk to veto it and then have his veto be overridden. That would just be politically disastrous, as well as a major setback for this mayor's administration. He can't take that risk.
Alderman Hall, how do you feel about the advancement of this rival plan and how it impacts the state of negotiations?
Well, I think that it's again, it's a proposal. Number one, I'm concerned about liquor taxes being sky high. Number two, I'm concerned about the idea of predatory debt collectors to take debt. I've already stated the fact that, again, property taxes, they are already going up. So all of the work that we did in reviewing, asking for certificate of errors have now gone out the window because in fact, property taxes are going to go up. I'm also concerned about the idea of turning on VGT machines with no third rail. This is something that has been proposed.
VGT, video gaming?
Video gaming, meaning that right now we will possibly see video gaming turned on in different parts of the city. Again, no third rail. Is there work to do? I think we're going to go down to the 9th hour to make sure that it gets done. But as it stands right now, some of the funding sources have some limitations to it. The idea, for example, of boathouses being used, those are federally protected. So that means that the projection has to come down now. And so again, what you're seeing is the back and forth, but you're seeing people committed to making sure that our city does not shut down.
Mayor Johnson has been standing firm, though, in keeping the corporate head tax. Here's a little bit of what he said earlier today.
You have a group of alders who are working against the will of the people. That's why this particular struggle is important, because this is not just a fight for Chicago. This is a fight for our democracy across our country. People have overwhelmingly spoken that in order for us to have affordable communities, we have to challenge big corporations and the ultra-rich to pay their fair share in taxes.
Alderman Hopkins, what's your reaction to that?
The corporate head tax has been a resolved, settled issue. There isn't enough support in the city council to pass it, period. So the mayor needs to give up on that. It's that simple. There's other things that we could potentially change about the budget that just passed. My colleague, Alderman Hall, mentioned a couple of them. I think we're willing to discuss video gaming and some other things that are in that alternative budget that maybe we could change. There's still time to do that, but the corporate head tax has been answered. It's not going to happen.
Alderman Hall, is the mayor painting himself into a corner by taking such a hard line on that corporate head tax?
Well, one of the things that we do know is that without the corporate head tax, we'd possibly be back in city council in June because there'd be no money left. This budget is absent of some real long-term sustainable income. I don't think that the ideas mentioned would be sustained through the test of times. And one of the things that's most concerning is the fact that we have not had an adequate amount of time to look through the numbers in a way that can justify, certify that the revenue will be there. So if we are back in the table in June to figure out how to pay for the remaining 6 months of 2026, then so be it. But there are some very massive gaps in this budget that leaves concern. And so my concern is that we will run out of money simply because we have not found a sustainable revenue that can stand 12 months of Chicago economic challenges.
And you believe then that the corporate head tax is the most sustainable, certainly when compared to some of the other revenue possibilities that your colleagues have
What
proposed.
I do know is that $9 billion was made in 4 months by corporations in this year. So the money is here in Chicago. And what I'm suggesting is simply because of the fact that we see that Chicago is leading the nation in global industries. And so to ask corporations to pay a portion is a sustainable model because they're not going to leave. However, at the end of the day, I do see the challenges of a federal government that has played the tariff games and has corporations uncertainty. So I do think that there is still enough room in the middle to find corporate sustainable contributions to our economy beyond just taking money from consumers.
Okay, so I don't have to tell you that you're up against the clock here, right? You've got, 12 days before the deadline? I'm not even sure it's that much, honestly. Alderman Hopkins, is there potential that negotiations could go past that date and that the city government could shut down?
It's possible. None of us want to see that happen because I think the consequences would be disastrous, even beyond anything that we could predict right now. We should be afraid of it because it's a fearful scenario. So we're all highly motivated to resolve this. I think I can speak for my colleagues. I may want to take Christmas Day off. I'm willing to work Christmas Eve and the day after Christmas and every other day after that to try to resolve this. We all are. We've come down to the wire here, and there's a highly motivated group of people that are looking to potentially make a compromise. if the mayor's willing to abandon his effort to pass that corporate head tax, everything else can remain on the table, and we can look at potential changes to the budget that we just passed.
And again, you've seen this in Washington, D.C., where there's been some short-term spending packages passed, and then they come back and they vote for the remainder of the year. So it's not uncommon, again, to get through budget season with just patches, and then if you have to regroup, so be it. But on January the 1st, one thing I'm confident, along with my colleague, is that the city will be open, people will still be working, and paychecks will be in their bank accounts.
Okay, so I want to talk about this other controversial issue, of course, that both of you have been involved in, and that is the curfew issue. The so-called time and site curfew that you're proposing, Alderman Hopkins, it would give police the authority to issue a curfew of up to 4 hours with 12 hours notice within a geographic specific area. How did you arrive at this as a potential solution?
Well, after the debate about the snap curfew seemed to center on the fact that no one wanted to give the police such blanket authority to declare a curfew almost immediately and start enforcing it almost immediately. The point of this is to create a disincentive for the teens to follow up on one of their planned actions. So when we find out about it, we have many sources that tell us when one of these teen gatherings is being planned. When we find out, we need to use every tool in the toolbox to convince them to actually not do it. This would allow us plenty of time in advance. 12 hours is the minimum, by the way, Brandis. Plenty of time in advance to work with the Chicago Public School, the violence interrupters, the counselors, the faith communities that are on the ground, and tell them, don't let your teens show up for this event. We're going to enforce a curfew if they do, and the event is not going to happen.
With that much notice, does that not just give teens, and obviously a lot of these teens are good kids, right? But some of them are, violence does happen, as we know, and as has been demonstrated. Does that not give them the opportunity to just relocate?
Sure. You know, teens will be teens, right? They're always going to try to find a way around authority. We did that when we were teens, so I can't fix that problem. But what I can do is create disincentives for them to show up at these events that are potentially violent and life-threatening. And now I'm working with Alderman Hall on a companion ordinance that would actually require the social media companies to take down advertisements for some of these illegal teen gatherings, further reducing the chances that they're actually going to happen.
Alderman Hall, tell us more about that and why you think social media should hold some responsibility here.
Well, when I sat in the funeral of the 14-year-old that was killed 2 weeks ago on Cottage Grove, 79th Lincoln Son, to see that many children crying and to hear a mother and a father just devastated, this is a step in that direction to protect children. Again, social media companies have gotten out of control. Australia banned 16 and under usage of it because they are witnessing children being influenced and inspired to do violence. We're just asking social media companies, do your job. This is not an attack on the First Amendment. This is not a surveillance program. We have to trust, first of all, our superintendent of police. He's been doing a great job. We see that there's a new pilot program that our state's attorney is offering for young people who are on the west side that have been through some, trials and tribulations with the justice system. And so what we're looking at is a comprehensive approach. Trust our police. Secondly, let's make investments so that children who are detained are not repeat offenders such early in life. And so what I'm confident is that working with Alderman Hopkins, we can find sources of investments so that kids are deterred from doing such acts.
So it sounds like then you're taking a both-and approach, that Alderman Hall, would you support such a time and site curfew in addition to holding social media companies
Absolutely.
to some responsibility?
I think it's irresponsible, number one, that social media companies are promoting. That's irresponsible. Secondly, I think that is irresponsible if we're not protecting our children. This is simply a measure to make sure that we don't see another 14-year-old boy or girl laid in a casket simply because they were at the wrong place at the wrong time. Kids are going to be kids. We want them to go outside. We want them to see the city, but we want it to be done safely.
Okay, so Mayor Johnson had been a staunch critic, of course, of the SNAP curfew proposal. Here's what he said when he vetoed that plan earlier this year.
This proposal could certainly expose the city to even more costly lawsuits and settlements. In the 80s, remember now, Mary Richardson, Laurie, and I, and our budget director, we are now going through police settlements that happened during that very era, where the city of Chicago is now responsible to pay for the damage that was caused by the very policies that criminalize as well as dehumanize people, and particularly black and brown people. And you're asking me to repeat the sins of our forefathers and mothers? Why would I do that?
Okay, so we're almost out of time, but when we often have these discussions, we also talk about making sure that there's space and opportunity for young people to enjoy the city, be it downtown or in their own neighborhoods. Alderman Hopkins, what could that look like, and where are we in the process of making that happen in 30 seconds?
That's a big part of what we're doing. That's why Alderman Hall has joined me. He voted against my initial SNAP curfew proposal. We made improvements, and now he's one of my co-sponsors. So in the spirit of compromise, we know how to do it, and the next step in this is to find ways to help youth that get picked up for curfew violations, to give them access to programs and interventions that they need to turn their lives around. Our work is not done yet.
Okay, we'll be keeping an eye on it. Thanks to both of you for joining us, Alderman Brian Hopkins, Alderman William Hall. Thanks. Up next, digital literacy efforts to help local seniors are at risk. Senior citizens have been gathering in Chinatown over the past several years to learn how to use technology. But since the Trump administration's recent termination of many federal grants, their future with digital education is uncertain. In partnership with students at Northwestern University's Medill School of Journalism, we explore how these digital literacy efforts take shape. Here's Yao Hongjung.
Okay. Chinatown residents like 66-year-old Mu Huagong and her husband have learned to use their phones to navigate daily life in an increasingly digital world. The camera phone acts as their second pair of eyes to check ingredients. Then a few taps on an AI tool help them decide what to buy. On the messaging app WeChat, they video call a friend, asking if she needs anything from the store. The Gongs have been learning how to use their phones every Monday in classes such as this one. The Coalition for a Better Chinese American Community, also known as CBCAC, started holding the classes during the pandemic to help seniors learn how to use digital tools. But in May 2025, the Trump administration terminated the federal grants that had been funding the classes.
The grant that was cut was roughly $50,000.
The Federal Digital Equity Capacity Grant awarded more than $23.7 million to Illinois. This grant provided resources for residents across the state to access the internet and online services. In Chicago, the Digital Equity Coalition distributed the grant to dozens of community groups in underserved and low-income communities, including in Chinatown.
This idea that, these are extraneous benefits that, people don't deserve to have, that they're not necessary, or that, these aren't communities that this administration is seeking to help.
A roughly 25% of residents in Chicago's Chinatown are 65 and older, almost double the city's overall average.
Very few people, really know or have internalized this information about, the fact that there are a lot of seniors in Chinatown and they live, below the poverty line.
CBCAC holds digital literacy classes and one-on-one tech appointments for seniors.
Please say or enter your 10-digit phone number or say or...
The classes are designed to help seniors use their phones to overcome language barriers. Take public transportation. And navigate government services and benefits. For seniors, phones and the internet are more than technology. They are a lifeline to community and connection. University of Chicago student Michelle Du volunteers at CBCAC.
我是Michelle， 我今天帮你。你教我是？ Yeah， 我教你。
She says helping seniors is very rewarding.
Once a grandma was just like giving me snacks afterwards to express her thanks, and it was just really kind. And I don't think I don't experience that in like everyday life.
Even with the federal grant, funding ran short.
And that's not enough for a full program. That's enough to support part of a staff salary, and not even enough for a lot of printing and a lot of other resources.
We are experiencing longer than normal wait times.
Currently, they still have this habit. They say, oh, CBCC can help, but at this point, CBCC cannot help immediately.
Hannah Zemet-Butt researches digital equity for UChicago. She says making online access fair means confronting long-standing patterns of segregation and disparity in Chicago.
All of these different social factors do occur alongside people not having these digital skills. So we need to tackle it as a social issue.
CBCAC recently received a $25,000 grant from the Julian Grace Foundation, a private organization, to continue its digital literacy programs. But without federal support, it remains unclear how long these classes will be able to serve seniors like the Gongs. For WTTW News at Northwestern University's Medill School of Journalism, I am Yao Hongzhong.
And you can read more about the digital literacy program in Chinatown on our website. And that's our show for this Thursday night. Stay connected with our reporters and what they're working on by following us on Instagram at WTTW Chicago. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 7 for the Week in Review. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that gives back to its community in Chicago and beyond.